Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All-In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and I am happy because we have the full squad today. We've got Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair, and we're here to talk about all things Week 2 LCS and everything else going around the league. Excited to be back, excited to have the crew, like I said. But before we jump into all the games, all the action, what are your initial reactions, thoughts to Week 2's LCS action?
My initial thoughts are that I didn't think the standings would be like this in any sense, really,
Right.
at the end of the week. And also, I wish I was here last podcast.
Yeah, that's
now
true.
I'm too late.
Well, we'll dig into it. We'll give you your time in the glory for a hot second. Go ahead.
I don't know, been pretty chill at home, not much to do really. Playing some solo queue, playing some other games, going well. As for the games, I mean, Kevin said it best. I don't think anyone expected the standings to play out like this. Kinda. I didn't think FlyQuest was gonna be as good, but 10th, 0-6.
Pretty big surprise. Yep.
Yeah, I would say the league has been pretty interesting for overall power level. I mean, besides FlyQuest and I guess 100 Thieves, those are the two worst teams for me, honestly, which is unexpected. The rest of the teams have been fairly reasonable. I think they're all very decisive, is what I noticed. Is like they just all go for plays and are pretty aggressive. So that's been nice to see. I wouldn't say that all their calls are great, but for the most part, 8 out of 10 of our teams, they're just willing to fight and willing to go for stuff, even though, you know, they might not all be the right choices. They're all on the same page.
Yeah, I think I can definitely echo that sentiment. Like, one thing I have noticed is that a lot of times in the past, you know, especially in NA, we can be criticized for not really doing anything and just trying to scale, and hopefully team fights go well. But I definitely am seeing a lot more early proactivity, especially trying to set up stuff, you know, set up a dragon or even set up dives or even just skirmishes in the jungle when you're invading a buff or something like that. It seems like teams are willing to kind of pull that trigger, and, you know, maybe it's because they care less and are just like, let's just see what happens. But I do think that makes for more enjoyable content when we're watching the teams, and definitely agreeing with all of you in that it's surprising to see how the standings have shaped up. So we'll just go down the list. And in fact, but before, you know, we just start from the top down, I do want to begin, because Kevin wasn't here, with Team Liquid. You know, you weren't here last week, so I'll let you kind of gloat about that a little bit, but then take it after week 2, because they kind of almost did a complete 180, not completely, but you know, we did see kind of a revert back to the initial hype of week 1. So Kevin, here's your time to kind of gloat and then kind of maybe take that back a little bit. But what are your thoughts on Team Liquid?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts were that in the first week, they looked really decisive. I already mentioned before that I didn't think their competition was that tough, but like the fact that they 3-0'd when they couldn't win 2 matches in a row last split is like a huge improvement. Core JJ is back. His champions are strong. It's really disgusting. I think he's playing support engage, especially on Rel, probably better than any singular player over the average. Even on the losses, I think he's been playing real well. Summon is back for the most part. I think he's been playing, especially his week 1 was insane. His week 2 is still good. I think he's just like, he's back to like being a positive force on the team on net, except when you're playing against Cassante, which don't even get me started. That was such dog shit. Like, yeah, I'm so sorry Summit went to flank as Gnar and lost at 100% health to 20% health Cassante. Yeah, that was Summit's fault. I'm so sorry,
He's a tank,
guys.
by the way. Kazante's a tank, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't point that out. He's
Yes,
a tank.
literally all tank items, by the way, and was behind, by the way. And I was just like, this is so stupid. There was like no recourse. I think that if Liquid had beaten that Dignitas game, they still would have lost the last game. I don't think there's enough momentum they would have had to beat the EG in their current state. But I think Liquid looks still better. I think that the only thing that looks bad on this team is Harry overall, even on their wins. I think Jan in their loss against Dignitas, insanity.
Yeah.
Or insane, not insanity. But like he was playing incredible. He had a lot of poise for a rookie, and he was like someone who I was like, oh, I can trust this guy when the cards are down and the chips are down. He played so well. So honestly, I feel positive about the team. They're not first place right now, but I mean they're second or tied for third.
I don't know. I'm kind of off and on about Jan. I think he actually played pretty poorly against Dignitas. He played a lot of fights where he definitely did not need to try and just ego flash for killing the AD carry and then
Mm.
not, he ego flashes into the middle of the team Wild Turtle style, doesn't kill him, and doesn't full send it. Because if you're going to go for that play, you have to just commit to the 1v1. He wouldn't get it, and then he'd start backing off, and just Aphelios walks away, and he dies burning flash and ultimate. I feel like they could have won that game. Obviously, his team didn't help him a lot, but there were a lot of plays where I feel like he had a chance to turn the game, just kind of flubbed it.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. There was I mean, it's just all the games were really messy. Like just to talk about the weekend in general, and really just skirmish heavy. So to talk about Team Liquid, like I mean, they're probably in a lot of situations that they hadn't been in a while, or haven't seen much. Like the games go late, and there's a lot of fighting, and I'm sure they haven't really practiced that much. So I feel like a lot of the skirmishes were still going Team Liquid's way. It just wasn't enough to win the last two games. Um, so yeah, I mean, Summit we saw a little bit of like the inting, like the running it back. It kind of came back, but he was still fairly consistent. Um, Harry, I mean, even though he's probably like the worst player on Team Liquid, I still felt like he was doing pretty decent stuff. Definitely way better than he was last split. Like he was still like on his Annie, it was sometimes kind of scuffed, but like he was still like playing pretty well. Like he was having good flashes to escape. He was having some good side steps I noticed. He was still landing, you know, trying to land good engages and stuff. And yeah, he would get outplayed, but like I mean, that I just have to say, like, this team, even in their losses, is such a big upgrade from last split. I'm kind of surprised. Like, and I guess it makes sense, right? They spent all of MSI training and practicing to get to this point, so it's good to see results. And I mean, it's not enough to win the games yet because honestly, it seems like the level of the league has kind of improved in a way. So I mean, we can be harsh on TL. They went 1-2, and they're not going to be like the best team win everything all the time. But I am still quite surprised how much better they are than last split. It is still unexpected for me. So whatever. They can still pick things up. They have a lot to improve if they want to like win a championship or make it to Worlds. They have a long road to go. But I mean, this is way better than what 8th, 9th they were last split. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think if I had to maybe pinpoint, like it seems like individually, a lot of them have kind of increased or tightened up their game. You know what I mean? Jan, we were saying, looking really good. Core JJ back, right? Especially with his champs being particularly good. Summit kind of dialing it back on the just craziness. And then Piosik playing well, right? Harry, although maybe not the greatest, improving. So all the individual pieces themselves look much better. I think where their weakness still lies is, and this was a carryover from last split, is just sometimes their team fighting is not really well coordinated. Like we saw again, the timing of flanks, especially on Gnar. And Gnar is a champion that Summit is pretty well known for, right? And he's played 2 games and lost both of them. And he farmed well. He did pretty well in laning, but it just seemed like in those team fights, either the Gnar bar wasn't really managed well, or it was managed well, but then the team didn't engage at the right time, and the flankings, like I said, were mismatched, mistimed. And so I think overall, if you're a Team Liquid fan, it is still a net positive because the players themselves have gotten better. Now it's just a matter, I think, of how do we get on the same page, especially during those team fights. But I am extremely net positive. Again, they lost to Dignitas, so you're kind of like, oh, okay. But at the same time, a positive for Dignitas, which we'll talk about later. Like they are, I think, surprising some people.
They're not a bad team. Actually.
They're not a bad team, so we'll
It's
talk
weird
about them.
world.
So that's credit to them. But also, Team Liquid could have won that game as well. So again, overall, if you're a Team Liquid fan, I think you're feeling pretty good. So Kevin, you don't have to be, you could still be on that gloat train, that TL hype train you were calling it. I think that they are definitely for real. They are definitely an improvement, and I think they're going to be a contender all the way through. But let's start at the top again. So Cloud9. This is a team that is really just been here cruising past teams, but I've said this before, I think when they play Golden Guardians, they always have Golden Guardians number. I've said the same thing when they play against CLG/NRG, like NRG CLG just seems to have Cloud9's number. It seems like whenever they play each other, that roster, even the core of Dokla and Contracts and, Palafox, like they just seem to be able to beat Cloud9. And again, they come in here and Cloud9, doesn't get the 3-0 week and they end up losing to NRG. But Cloud9 still looking strong overall. Again, I think it's a matchup thing. Like for whatever reason, they probably better hope they don't play NRG in the playoffs at some point, because I think this is just a team that knows how to beat them for some reason. But overall, what are your thoughts on Cloud9 and a 2-1 week?
My thoughts are that they played about as well as I expected. They completely stomped most of their games, not just this week but last week as well. I think that their loss was kind of more due to the other team playing better. Yeah, you're right. NRG had their number. Ignar like out roamed. I mean, it was a Yumi, so how are you supposed to roam on Yumi? But Ignar did roam well up to top side. I think that when Contract is on his game, like he has like a good. He's pretty much in my mind. He's always been like kind of worse than Blabber in like, but playing very similar styles. So if he can play up to his like high level and Blabber just playing an okay game, like they have a fine matchup. And then besides that, MNS, like he has his games where he's on and off. I don't think he necessarily threw the game. I honestly just credit NRG a lot more. I don't know what to think of C9 though, because I don't think they're getting challenged that much, even though they lost this game. All their matches were sub 30 minutes. So like, are they gonna learn anything past that? I hope so. But so far, it's all been pretty quick, and I would like to see them versus current Liquid and see if they can like drag the game out, because I think they will lose the early game, and then we get to see what happens from there past the 30-minute mark, because Liquid has the highest average game time, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean this weekend they play, or Cloud9 plays against EG and TL. So I think that's going to be very telling, because I mean, as per usual, I think there's a fairly clear top three, as at least for right now. Obviously, things change, metas change, so maybe uh, maybe a different team will come up. But I think it's kind of hard to tell, because their first 6 games they may have had the easiest schedule so far, because they haven't played really the second or third best team. If we're saying Cloud9's the best right now.
Yeah.
Um, so we kind of just have to wait for this week, really, for at least for me to draw some conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, the end of this weekend is the end of the first half of the round robin, so
Yeah.
everybody will have played everybody. So I mean, it's gonna be a good barometer. I mean, Cloud9. God, I mean, usually I'm pretty high on them. I like them. I hated them this week. I hated the fact that we got Yumi twice. And we got Zeri Yumi too. Oh my god, man. It was supposed to be nerf. We weren't supposed to see it. It was such bullshit when I saw them lock it in. And then they played Zeri Yumi and they went freaking static shiv into like into night harvester, right? On Zeri Yumi. And I was like, I hate this team. God damn it. I hate that they did this. I hate that they brought this in. People are gonna start playing it now. Oh no. Zeri's supposed to be dead. Yumi's supposed to be dead. I'm so glad they lost on Aphelios Yumi. That's a disgusting combo, as in like you should not be able to play that. That should not be allowed on 13-12 to play Aphelios Yumi. So I mean I would say that this team is still not playing at 100%, right? To like mess around and do a Felios Yumi, I mean, that's not a real bot lane. I don't think if they were like 100% trying to win that game, they would play that. And that's my genuine analysis. So I think they're still messing around. They're still experimenting. They're seeing how far they can push things. I also kind of suspect that Blabber hasn't been able to get, because Vi's probably banned in all their games and their scrims. I imagine Blabber actually hasn't played Vi in a long time. So when it was open and they had to pick it, he was like, I haven't played this in like 3 weeks or something. So Cloud9 is, I think they're still ramping up. I would say they're still definitely going to be the best team, and that if they try their hardest next week, I think they go 3-0 still. But for NRG's sake, if we're talking just about their loss, I mean, Ignar, I feel like he's been very, very quiet all split. He gets his rel. Like, I think one of the first engaged champions he's gotten all split long.
Yep.
And he looks really insane. He is all over the map. I mean, also talk about like Dokla and Palafox and contracts on the top side being very aggressive. Really abusing the fact that Blabber was kind of clueless on the Vi. And then yeah, Ignar roaming around looking like a complete Chad, just super broken champion, goes everywhere he wants and engages on anybody all the time. So I mean, Cloud9, I cannot say that they're not still the best team. Uh, and I hate the fact that they're flexing the Yumi and still being like, we're gonna play this nerf champion still. So meh. Also, I mean, just a quick mention to NRG, uh, just because I started talking about their drafts already, is like they're playing Melio too, which I thought was also quite nerfed, and a lot of people dropped that in Prio. So I feel like NRG should just stick to the engage supports that are super strong right now because you know, Ignar does not look that good on Melio. He looks great on Rel, and I'm sure he can play a fine Rakan. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm echoing the same thing with the ADC, especially Zeri, Yumi, and Sven's still playing a lot of Enchanter support. But it's obvious that there's a little bit of a shift now into engage supports, and you know, I think for a long time, Sven has enjoyed the Enchanter support and kind of been memeing like support's so easy, like and it kind of has been, right. And when you have such a great hyper carry ADC like Berserker, yeah, your job is kind of easy. So I think it will be kind of a test if he's only picked one engage support the split so far, and that was Nautilus, and they did win that game. But a lot of times he's picking the Lulu, he's picking the Yumi. Again, nerfs are coming in, and so even the duo of Zeri Yumi, that's not going to be available anymore. Now I know Berserker does pick Aphelios a lot, and so sometimes you want to play a champ that can just protect him, but I want to see, will Sven be able to adjust? Will he be able to really take on more of the engage, kind of go button support? Because we've seen it here and there, and I still think there's mixed results on that. And
yeah.
again, we're seeing the Ignars and the core JJs, the ones who shine on that kind of being a turn of the tide.
Ayla.
And Ayla, yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think this is really where Sven's going to have to put all that trash talking to the test, and we'll have to see. I think it's personally, it's going to be cool to see, like, can he step up to that? But yeah, what were you saying?
I want to see him play Thresh. That's like the hardest support, like engage champ or whatever. I want to see Sven play Thresh and be like, all right, now play a real support buddy. Let's see it.
Well, he's done it a couple times, and I remember distinctly, like, they weren't great. Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of lucky in that he has a buffer because the rest of his team is still really good. So you can kind of cover up for some of that stuff. But again, it will be interesting, especially given their schedule next week, especially given now that teams are really prioritizing some of these engaged supports. Like, how are they going to react? So again, will be interesting. But let's go to yeah, go ahead.
Just a
Yeah,
little,
more.
just a little
Yeah.
blueprint for teams that are listening next week, because I know you are. Is that if you want to beat Cloud9, I think the easiest path is to punish Blabber, like to really mess with him, because once all of his like momentum in the early game was gone in that game against NRG, like he was getting picked off in the jungle, he was getting caught
Mm-hmm.
in the river and stuff. Like he just kept chain feeding and dying, and he was like, I'm usually like he usually feels strong and can face check and stuff. He's got a Yumi in his backpack, but yeah, he was face checking and he was just getting one popped. So I
Yeah.
think, I mean, that's always been the game plan against beating C9, but like now even more so. I think, focus Blabber and this team falls apart.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to go off of that point. Like the teams then have to have pretty good laners that can keep up with Fudge and Eminez, because it kind of help
Yeah.
with that, any kind of early prio. But if you can do that, either by picking champs that kind of do have that early prio game to just shut down Blabber.
Yeah,
Uh,
like a Z or mid, right? Tons of early
exactly.
prio. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is exactly what happened. I can't believe this
Right.
champion is back and being blind picked and stuff.
And pretty crazy too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyways, let's move on though to EG. This is a team again surprising all fronts, went 3-0. And for all intents and purposes, even though we know what the results are now, like they played 100 Thieves, who we thought were going to be decent or should have been decent. They played FlyQuest, who even though had a really weak week one, should have been maybe a bounce back game. They beat them. And then I think really the biggest win is that Team Liquid win. Sorry, Kevin. But, again, going back to that, this is a team that looks good to me. And I'm really excited because, honestly, Jojo is looking fantastic. But not just him. Like, Armeo is looking pretty good. Revenge has had his moments. Unforgiven. Again, like this team, I'm kind of getting excited about. And so whatever's happening over there, I think it's some good stuff. But what are your thoughts on EG and having this great week too?
Yeah, I think they really beat this point home a little too much, maybe during the match against FlyQuest. But I really do think it is hilarious. Ayla's currently winning the trade.
Right.
Um, if this was old LCS, like season 3, season 4, the Twitter beef would be so spicy. There would be so much more momentum behind it, and there would be so many more Reddit posts. But for now, because these personalities are still building their fan bases, they're still trying to get people used to them. caring about content and community engagement. It's unfortunately not as big, but for me personally, I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
Vulcan, I think, should keep speaking like that. I love it like that. Like, he's a very good player with an attitude. Like, that's
Mhm.
great. Or like a made up attitude. That's great. But Ayla, he got it. He got his win this time. He won this round. The rematch will be spicy, and I'm very happy for them. I think that Unforgiven was a clear upgrade in terms of overall steadiness. Like, I think FBI is the anchor, or not anchor, the stable list player historically, for 80 carries here in NA. But recently, like, yeah, he is like still always been missing that spark you need to be like a
Mhm.
hyper carry. And Unforgiven, at least so far, seems pretty good. Jojo being back is the biggest plus. I don't even think Armeo's like necessarily that good still. I
Mhm.
don't like his play on average as a jungler, just watching in a isolation. But his play in together with Jojo being such a dominant mid laner, very good. And then Revenge is finally on a good team. And like, when you have pressure mid and you're not just like having to do everything on Immortals or whatever crap roster you're stuck on, yeah, he looks pretty decent. So I'm very happy for them. I don't necessarily. Their test is next week with C9. I don't think they will win it. I think that they are a good team in terms of like everything coming together at the right time, but there still isn't enough collective experience to shot call a winning game, in my mind. And I don't know who is going to be the leader when things get tough for them. Is
Yeah.
it Jojo? If it is, then it's like the birth of a shot calling legend, right? Because he has the mechanics, but does he have the brain? And that's like, usually you don't have both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Unless
mean,
you're LBL.
honestly, I'm very happy with Armeo. I'm happy to see him doing well and succeeding. I think that's kind of the biggest surprise for me, is because I thought coming in they kind of picked him up and he was like, okay, he'll be middle of the pack. I think he's up there in terms of junglers in the league.
I think so
Um,
too.
Obviously he makes some mistakes, but I think he's definitely been the biggest surprise for me overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Arma is pretty good. He's got that thing where he's always at the right place at the right time right now.
Yeah,
EG is like, they haven't really been tested in the mid and late game, and like when all your early games are this solid and this clean, it's. I mean, they just close out games pretty quickly, right? I think that they are able to bring that hump of like we are clean and strong early game, and then we can close out the game. So they haven't really had that thing where like they have a clean early game perhaps, and then the enemy team gets a good way to come back in, and then they're in an awkward mid game phase where they're slightly ahead, but it's not like a super clear cut way to end the game. So they haven't been tested like that much in that area. But for the most part, from what we've seen, is that their early games are super solid because they have actually three winning lanes almost all the time, and the Armad is just at the right time at the right place, and it's pretty easy to jungle when you have three winning lanes. Yeah, the one caveat I have with Armeo, maybe Kevin feels like this too, and I feel like this too, is like even though he is in the right place at the right time, almost more so than any other jungler in the league, sometimes his execution in fights leaves a little to be desired, especially
Mhm.
like, he's been playing a ton of Viego, and I feel like sometimes like the placement of his ultis on Viego, or like when he swaps with people, like what he does with the other abilities that he gets, or even just missing like free W's, like that's the one thing I noticed when I was watching him. I was like, okay, EG is so far ahead it doesn't matter, but he just whiffed his W into ulti combo. And then he
Yeah.
walked up and queued them and he got out of possession. So that's like, that stuff is just like, pay a little more attention, Armao, and clean that stuff up. Otherwise, it should be fine. For Revenge, I was pretty down on him, saying that like, you know, I was waiting for to see if Revenge is gonna fit into the team, and I would say his Cassante in one of his games was pretty rough. He had like two really bad back-to-back fights that lost him for EG, but then he was able to come back and still keep making plays. Like it was against FlyQuest, right, where FlyQuest had to throw that for EG to win. Um, Revenge was on Cassante against Impact's Malphite, and he kept insecting the Malphite into his team,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
Malphite would get the big wombo. I was like, Revenge, you're literally helping them. So once like that was done, once he stopped doing that, it was a lot better in the later stages. But if I'm being honest, FlyQuest did kind of throw that back. Like, so that's why I say EG still hasn't had that like mid game sort of like they come back into the game. It's like honestly, FlyQuest threw it, and then EG took it and was able to win the game, right? So, you know, still got to improve for EG, and honestly, FlyQuest they like that was pretty unlucky for them to lose that game. Well, it was stupid for them to lose that game, but also a little unlucky. If you guys haven't seen it, there's a clip of like LS freaking out, like the biggest throw ever, right? Like FlyQuest is like they're on the tower, they have a Rift Herald, and then they dive the turret and they get wiped, right? I think what happened is Spica Ivern queued Rich, and Impact didn't want to take the Ivern like woo like
Yeah,
jump
yeah.
to, and then he dies in a turret, and then it's like it just snowballed. They're like, oh, we're going in, and the Impact's like, no, 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 I was just joking, and then they all die. So unlucky, I guess, but for EG's sake, I mean, they're pretty good still. They're pretty clean. It's just I think the one thing they need to figure out is revenge, not insecting
Yeah.
Malphite into his own team. Yeah. Otherwise, good team, solid team.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely going to be like a test to see how they can deal with adversity because right now they haven't faced any. But I think overall positive signs to start, and that's definitely how you would rather start on a positive note than kind of have to climb up from the ground, which is what FlyQuest seems to be doing. But let's talk about Golden Guardians because they had a pretty tough schedule first week. This week, easy schedule. Although the teams that are considered easy have also been proving themselves. So 3-0, right? 3-0 for Golden Guardians. That's great for them. They played Dignitas, they played Immortals, and then they played TSM. So again, like I said, on paper, those are teams that nobody really had high rankings on, but have proven to be okay at certain moments. And so the fact that Golden Guardian got those 3 wins, hey, that's a net positive. But what are your thoughts on Golden Guardians? To me, I just overall see for me, it just seems like they're relaxed in their gameplay. Doesn't seem like anything is too forced. Even when they are, bizarrely going down early game, it seems like they can still kind of reel things in and then execute in the mid and late game and get those wins out. But what are your thoughts on Golden Guardians?
I think that these were teams they needed to beat. Like they just have to beat these teams on this level, and they were able to do it, relatively fine. There might have been okay. I've been watching enough League and LPL and LCK where I think my theory is every time LPL has a very dominant win at an international tournament around the world, there's this ripple effect where everyone's like, I guess we're just fighting more now. I guess we
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
skirmish. Like I guess that's just how you play League. And so there's always this after effect where things become more fiesta, including in LCK where things become more fiesta, relatively speaking. And so I think this is fine. I think the good news is Licorice is on Jax twice, and he didn't get completely stomped. Like, what I needed to see from this team to be sure, especially after week 1, that they could carry on their momentum from MSI is that they need to be able to play through top as an option, right? And he hasn't fallen off yet, which is great. And their only losses are against the top 2 teams right now. So honestly, like pretty good for them. I'm happy for them, and I'm hoping that they're like our third, fourth seed.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't very high on them at the beginning. I'm definitely starting to warm up to it. I honestly thought they were not going to be that good. I thought that they were situationally good last split. I thought they're going to fall off, and it's seeming, not going to call anything too early, but it is seeming like that's not the case, which is good. Especially with, like Evan said, being able to play through top lane through Licorice rather than just putting him on Malphite every game like they did to beat FlyQuest. So I definitely, there is very clearly some improvement, and MSI does seem to have helped them. And overall, like I don't really have any major complaints about them. It mainly just because they're passing my expectations for them, to be honest.
Yeah, Golden Guardians. I mean, I had them pretty high up, in opinion, and I think that they're mostly living up to it. They still have that kind of like they're playing a little, yeah, relaxed or comfortable or
Comfortable, yeah.
lazy almost. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not trying super hard. They're just fighting, and they're just outplaying people mechanically for the most part. And I'm gonna say something that is not super controversial. It's just not something we've heard in a long time. I think Licorice is the best top laner in the league right now.
Mm.
At this moment, for 6 games played, right? So I think Licorice. I mean, he had 2 like terrible, like absolutely unplayable matchups: Jackson to Poppy and Jackson to Gragas, and he won lane pretty handedly. So I think if you can do that, I mean, aren't you just an insane top laner, right? Because I know that if he goes and he plays against like an LPL or LCK top laner, those matchups, he is getting like Garbo dumpstered against a Poppy or a Gragas. But if he's in NA and he can play those losing matchups and just be fine, even or even getting ahead and like kind of pressuring them, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're just clearly a step above most of these other LCS top laners. And the other LCS top laners that he played were Rich and were Hanser. I mean, okay, Hanser's not a real top laner, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he was able to do it against Rich, right? I'm like, all right, not bad, you know.
I know, poor
So,
guy.
yeah, you just totally just got sideswiped for no reason.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, sorry, Hanser.
Hanser gets the fake God award this split.
I know.
Probably. I mean,
Oh,
it's been
no.
rough.
Oh,
Yeah, actual
no.
fake God. Like, I mean, you can't give him the tactical award because he's actually playing Malphite, right? So.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But for Golden Guardians, I mean, didn't they get 2 pentakills this weekend? Gory got a
Yep.
pentakill on Jace, and then
Gory and
Stixxay.
Sticks
Yeah.
A.
Stixxay got a 0-1-5, like a Felius pentakill to just go 5-1-5 or something.
He right clicked
ridiculous.
like 7 times and got a pentakill. So
Yeah, it was
That
so
was-
funny.
Like I didn't even expect it. I was just watching like, wait, was that?
Yeah,
I
that
was
was-
watching
that
it
was
happen.
no
Yeah.
definition of janitor duty.
Yeah, he cleaned it all up. He didn't even play that fight that well. He was very like going like he was kind of hesitant. He was backstepping. We didn't need to, but I mean he had Ghost, so it didn't matter. But yeah. So Golden Guardians. I mean, okay. So one thing I also will give them props for is Stixxay's Varus build. I feel like this AP Varus thing has been strong for so long.
Yeah.
Like, actually, like a couple years, and
Mhm.
we never see it. And like it is better, I think, than on hit Varus at killing tanks. I mean,
No, it 100% is.
100%, right?
As a Bears player, I can tell you this for sure.
Yeah,
It's better
okay.
and safer.
Yeah, and then on top of that, I think in general, not just against tanks, but just in general,
Mhm.
AP Varus is better than like probably on hit or poke lethality Varus. Like I think AP Varus is just the move. I mean, it's getting nerfed now, so we'll see if people still play it. But like the damage I was seeing on him just auto attacking, I was like, damn, bro, that's just like W, like what, tiny bunch of base damages and stuff with Nashor's Tooth and Riftmaker. So I mean, I think he went crown and stuff. The static shiv really helps like kind of bridge the gap of like maybe some of the issues that AP Varus might have. So I was glad to see that because I think that thing's been broken for years. But yeah, I mean, this team like has a very flexible, a lot of styles they can play. Right, we know top Licorice, you can play these carries now, and you can also play the tanks that he was playing last split. We know Gory can play Cassante mid and all this stuff, but he's also playing Jace and other carries and Akali. We know River, he can play Sejuani and J4 and Vi, but he can also play Kindred, it looks like. So we know who he can play Enchanters, but it looks like he can also play Rel. And like, I feel like this team is very, very flexible.
Mhm.
And maybe they don't have the same kind of hands as Cloud9, which I think is pretty apparent every time they match up. But for flexibility's sake, right, I definitely give that to Golden Guardians right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's good to see them, and honestly, you know, this I think is a mark of a team, a good team. Just the fact that, yeah, maybe they're not trying, but it just seems more, I don't know, natural, almost like the game's coming to them, and they're kind of adapting and able to play to that. And I do think, yeah, sometimes their matchups that they have to play against are tougher, like Cloud9. But overall, I'm still pretty high on Golden Guardians. I do see them. You know, we'll have to see because EG is on this hot streak, but you know, I had them, you know, as number 2. So maybe I still think they're up there 2, 3, you know, so to speak. So we'll have to see and watch that. But overall, I think I'm positive on Golden Guardians. But let's go to some surprising teams, both 3-3 as of now. It's Dignitas and TSM. So first, let's start talking about Dignitas. I gotta say that I think I'm a Rich fan. Like at this point, yes, he's really good at Cassante, but the fact that he picked Quinn into Renekton, like I love it when players just do stuff like that and like are like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And overall, I still thought it was a pretty good game. I mean, you know, they are playing them, I guess. You know, like I know I was pooping really hard on Jensen and Santorin, but they bounced back, I think, and they have had moments where they've been okay. And Jensen is playing a wide variety of stuff. I mean, he's I think the only one that's pulled out an Orianna, right? Like and did pretty well on it. So I'm pleasantly surprised by Dignitas. They're not a 10th place team. I think they will maintain that and not being 10th place, even if FlyQuest does pick it up. But what are your thoughts on Dignitas and how they've played through these 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I said that they wouldn't be a 10th place team because I was like, yeah, I think Rich is good. I think there's too much talent that, like, even though they don't, there's a lot of talent on this team, and it's very clear if you watch them play that there's not a lot of like general knowledge of how to close games. I feel like, but they do know like, hey, this is a good matchup. This is a good character pick. I'm really good at this. Let's like when they when I'm playing Liquid and they skipped the Mountain Soul guaranteed win with their Cassante tank player. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna just base race this, or we're gonna just try to hit the next. I was like, this is a throw. If they lose this, like, there's a chance that this game is just over, right? And they just don't know how to play the macro game. But uh, even with that in mind, I think that Rich is really good. But he does have the Kisante 3 out of 6 games. Let's
Yeah.
not have the Evie effect from last year, or beginning of the year, where you're like, oh, they're so good at Kasante, therefore you're a good player. He's good at Kasante, and his Quinn was fine, but he's just copying LCK. King was playing a really good Quinn, and I mean, Quinn's just destroys a lot of melee characters and makes them have no fun as long as you have jungle camp. So I think he's a much better fit for this Dignitas team if they're just trying to win with skill. But they're still going to be like bottom of playoffs at best.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I still thought they were going to be 10th place team just because we've kind of seen what this org does. Just to like teams and players, kind of like old CLG before their revamp, where you bring in good players. That does not mean success. I mean, they brought in Jensen Santorin, who aren't new to playing with each other. I mean, to be fair, it had been a while, but they've done really well together. I think they won a summer split, right, with TL together.
Who? Who are we talking about?
Santorin Jensen.
No.
Yes.
Oh no,
Santorin-
I don't, did they?
Santorin's
Well,
never
not
won
Santorin,
anything.
Jensen did.
Oh, Santorin hasn't won anything since he was on TSM in 2015.
It was the
Oh,
ex
okay, I was getting okay.
Jensen.
Yeah.
Right, because it was ex Smithy. My bad.
Yep.
But
Fuck,
these are like good enough players, and just seeing them completely collapse, and I mean, to be fair, it's not just them. Like, they've had good players on the team, just kind of completely fall into their own weight. So seeing that they're not just fully collapsing is honestly a good sign, especially because even though for a while I'd certainly been petitioning to just just get a different team in, get
Yeah.
rid of Dig. Seeing the progress does feel good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, talk about progress. Like, I think a lot of the spotlight is going to be on Rich and, like, your very star-studded jungle mid. But Tomo, he is an NA rookie, and he is looking pretty darn good. I gotta say, he is in probably one of. I was talking about Insanity being in this position. Tomo is right next to him, being in one of the worst positions you could possibly be as a rookie. Subbed in halfway through Spring Split to a 0-9 roster, gets Dignitas their first win, stays with the roster, has to get a new support, right? So Diamond, who's also not that great, also pretty green, kind of rookie-ish. And Tomo's performing very well in just the worst situation you could possibly be in as a rookie, as a developing player. So I think props to Tomo for doing this well and being this good. He just looks like he has hands, and he looks like he's trying to fight and get down. I mean, the guy is just gale forcing and flashing on top of Yeon and saying, "I'm gonna kill you, and then I will
Yeah.
kill everybody else after." It doesn't always work out, but I mean, like, this is what you want from a rookie ADC. This is legit stuff. So I'm pretty happy about that. Also, to comment on Diamond, he has a lot to work on. He is not the greatest player out there, but he is down to dance. Like, he's down to clown. He's like, he sees his Aphelios get like engaged on, and he just freaking flashes in there, and he's like, YOLO, and
Yeah.
he dies for his ADC. So I mean, I'll take it. I guess it could be worse. He could AFK and do nothing. Diamond still has a lot to figure out. But I mean, for this team, yeah, like they're just down to clown, right? They're just down to get in there and fight and use their hands. And I think like in a meta where there is just a lot of fighting, this is the best you can ask for a team that, yeah, I agree with Kevin, does not have the best macro, does not have the best map decisions. So how do you fix that? You put a lot of engage. You give your laners a way to lane well and get advantages, and you just fight all the time. And they won 2 games this weekend. So I don't expect this to keep it up. I expect other teams to tighten up their laning phase. I expect other teams to have more solid macro as time goes on. And I don't think this team's going to have that, mostly because of, honestly, the support jungle synergy is just, I think, pretty non existent on this team. So other teams, they'll probably slingshot ahead of them. But for now, I mean, they have a chance to like a buffer to figure it out to get good. So I
Yeah.
hope they do it.
Yeah, so Dignitas goes 2-1 right this past
Yeah.
week. TSM
Kevin was gonna say
also.
something. What's up?
Oh yeah, do you have
Just
something?
quickly, I think Diamond and Tomo are fake. I think Diamond especially has always
Oh.
been fake, and he's not good. Tomo made a lot of mistakes, and he is a rookie, so I'll give him a little bit of time, or at least more rookie. But I just don't think I don't think they have what it is, like this sense to actually be good. So hopefully Tomo gets better, but Diamond has always been kind of dragging down his teams. So I think their bot lane is the weak point for this team.
Okay.
I mean, I'm still on the Santorin Jensen question mark, being like, what are these guys doing? But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, again, it's still only the second week. We have had 6 games, so I mean, it is a lot of games into a compressed schedule. But we'll have to see. So Dignitas does go 2-1. TSM also went 2-1. Both of those teams, they both lost to Golden Guardian, so that was the equalizer for both of them. But let's talk about TSM and shift over there because, again, another team that really I don't think most people had rated high, but looking decent at points, and Insanity's definitely been a bright spot. I mean, I think seeing him pull out Graves a bunch in the mid lane I think it's fun because, you have these teams that seem to have certain identities, and the fact that Insanity is like the only mid laner pulling out a Graves mid, it's interesting. It gives them a little bit of flavor, and it kind of makes them unique in a sense. But let's talk about TSM. What do you think about them? Are they fake as well, or are they just hitting a stride right now while
Or
teams
they
are still
fake
fine?
God.
Are they fake gods, or like is this legit? But just overall thoughts on. And Mitchell's about to choke. You could hear he's dying over there. Luckily he muted his mic. But yeah, it's pretty funny watching him die over there. I'm just kidding. But TSM thoughts. Let's go.
I mean, they beat NRG, which is a pretty legit win, I guess, in my mind. They lost to GG, but that's fine. I think that are they fake? If they sub out Insanity, when Ruby does get here, they're fake.
Oh
And I
yeah,
don't
Yeah.
know
big
if they'll
time.
do that. Like that just seems like I'm like I think he's been playing pretty fine. Like I don't think the Graves mid was super impressive, but they won, I guess.
Sure.
He even when he was in the LCS before, I think he was fine. Never got why he went back down to Academy. I thought it was one of those big like NA got snubbed sort of moments where NA mids
Mm-hmm.
just don't get a good chance. And you importing Ruby like that, like why are we wasting a paycheck here, guys? So if they keep Insanity, I think they could tussle with Dignitas at the bottom of the rankings and still like get good wins. But I am happy to see the Turtles having a good time, and I think Hansard is fine on Cassante and
Yeah.
not very real otherwise. Cassante is the crutch of top laners, guys.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the one I'm happiest about is Wild Turtle. He looked
Mm-hmm.
not great on IMT. Kind of looks like he's there to watch his career play out. Not much he can do about it. And then who would have thought he rejoins TSM and it makes him look good?
Yeah.
That you join TSM and you look better than you did on your previous team. That is a crazy statement for the last 5 or so years, and I'm happy for him. I mean, he looked really good on Jinx. I mean, to be fair, Jinx Melio. I mean,
Yeah, it's not balanced. Yeah,
oh no, there was no Jinx Melio. They weren't on playing Jinx Melio. They were playing
they're playing Jinx
Rakan.
Amelia against some
No,
girls.
it was Rakan and or Jinx and Renata and Jinx and Rakan this week.
Really? No, it
But
was not. TSM versus IMT. They played Jinx Amelia. Oh, Jinx Renata. Oh my God, you're right. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. We're good. Let's just move
you're
past
good.
that.
But
Yeah.
overall, I mean, I'm happy. I also do agree. Insanity should just stay in. I mean, I think he's definitely one of, if not the strongest part of the team at the moment. So if they get rid of him, I mean, they just don't care. I mean, to be fair, I don't think they care in the first place because this is their last split. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
but
He said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, TSM, I mean, they're much better than I think anybody expected. Wild Turtle, I mean, he was playing very aggressively and pretty well for most of his games. I do think he kind of threw the game against Golden Guardians on Xayah. He kind of like flashed in at one point to try to get a kill onto Licorice, didn't get that kill, and then was punished literally in the fight right after for not having flash. And was just getting stabbed by Gory, and then that's where Stixay cleaned up a pentakill. So I mean, Wild Turtle's still doing Wild Turtle things. He's still flashing forward. I mean, that's fun to see. I think Insanity with the Graves mid pick, that is like something I've been thinking about as a potential like pick for like a long ass time. Ever since the overheal changes came in, I thought like, yeah, Graves mid or Graves top seems pretty legit. But I mean, he just goes like lethality instead of like the sustained version, which I mean is pretty strong, right? Collector's a really broken item. Graves is really good at abusing lethality, so wasn't the worst idea. It was interesting. I don't know if it's good though, but I would say it's viable. Probably reasonable to play, but I don't know how good it is really. Um, yeah, I'm not even gonna say Hanser can play Cassante. I don't even think that's a true statement. Like he is looking rough on Cassante sometimes. You can still do the Cassante bullshit where you press all your abilities and you ult them and you press all your abilities again. Yeah, that's easy to do. But other times I was like, bro, what are you doing? Yeah, I mean this team is definitely like I don't know if I would. I don't know. Like when I think of like the other teams that are in the same area, like I think Kevin compared them to Dignitas. I think it's a very reasonable comparison to make a team that should be worse but is looking a bit better. Who would you take over TSM at Dignitas at this point? I think I actually would take TSM. I think like Chime is definitely bringing some good shot calling to the table. I mean, he's playing a lot of engaged supports and some enchanters too, and I feel like Chime is an actual real shot caller. He seems like that was his role in past iterations of TSM, and he's still kind of doing it. This team definitely feels like they are greater than the sum of their parts and that they're all on the same page, willing to just go with whatever call it is. And Dignitas is definitely more scattered, maybe has better laners, right? Especially in top lane. But I think I would take TSM in like just like a I don't know, like a best of 5 brawlout or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah. And I think the real question is, yeah, because right now they're kind of in the middle, 3-3, right? Both of those teams, and
Yeah.
we're not. We both know that none of these are going to be like top, top teams, but can they be the top of the bottom tier teams, right? And at this point, it kind of looks like it because the next three teams that are 2 and 4, we have Immortals, 100 Thieves, and NRG, and honestly, all of them have been looking really rough. I know NRG had that win against Cloud9, but other than that, everything has been looking pretty grim. 100 Thieves is just looking like a hot mess with, especially with Quid coming in too. That's just looking terrible. And Immortals, like I don't even know what to say. Like, is there really anything to say about them? Everybody thought they'd be bad. They are bad. So it's like it's kind of like there's no surprises there. But let's talk about this last bottom tier teams, and we'll throw FlyQuest in there. The only team that's 0-6. These are the bottom of the bottom after 2 weeks in 6 games, right?
Let's go 100 Thieves. That's
Let's
the
go
most
100
interesting.
Thieves. Yeah, I
let's
think
talk about
that is interesting because that's a team where, again, other than FlyQuest, people are. I mean, at least Mitchell thought that they would be upper echelon teams, and they're
Oops.
not. Right? It's a big oops. So let's start there. 100 Thieves. Kevin, what are your thoughts? What does our boy Double Lift and the team have to do to climb out this hole?
Someone tell them it's summer. What the hell? Is it like too cloudy down there in LA? What is going on? I think Double's actually all right. Like when you're an 80 carry and your team is on fire, I honestly think there's just so little you can do, even if you're really good. Um, so I think that this team right now, they're like, I think Quid is pretty I think Closer hasn't shown much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Bucio's been okay in lane, but it's weird to me that he doesn't have more synergy with Closer around the map. Like it, the roaming, the playmaking, that stuff is really important right now, as we see from Ignar, as we see from Core. And if you can't do that, you're going to be exposed. And Quid, I mean, it's his first week, guys. He just got off the plane. They haven't scrimmed. So yeah, he hasn't blown the league wide open. Honestly, MNS had the same performance when he joined. He just had a better team. So I'm willing to give him a couple more weeks, but right now they look like hot ass.
Yeah.
Hot ass.
Yeah, I mean, Quid better get his shit together. Again, first week, give him a bit of a break because he did just get off the plane, as Kevin mentioned. But I think if he's still playing like this in 2 weeks, there's problems. And honestly, if TSM drops Insanity, I think we take Insanity for 100 Thieves.
Mm,
I I think mid split change that
I
would be
like
the
it.
best move for them.
That would be wild.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Closer just doesn't look very good.
He looks terrible.
Clo-
He looks
Yeah.
Closer looks like a he looks like he deserves to be in the spot his team's at right now. Like, he looks like bottom tier jungler, in my opinion. Like I don't know, man. I don't know whether it's he doesn't have the synergy with either of the mid laners he's played with because he doesn't play with them enough. I don't know what it is, but wow, does he look bad?
Yeah.
It's rough, man.
Yeah, I think for closer, I mean, I will give him the benefit of the doubt where I can. He's had like 3 different mid laners this year, and he had to switch supports. I mean, he's played only with one team for his entire career, and then now he's playing with a new team for the first time, pretty much, right? Like the Golden Guardians steal into 100 Thieves roster. So he's clearly not adjusting well. Yeah, he looks really terrible. That's the only caveat I can give him though, because he's supposed to be a top tier jungler, right? And he doesn't look at. I think he might be the worst looking jungler in the entire league. That's I think a pretty safe statement to make. So that's really bad. For Quid, yeah, you know, you cut him some slack. He did just get here a week ago, and he's a rookie. Here's what I'm gonna say about this team and about Quid. Quid, as bad as he looked, which was pretty freaking awful, um, he was actually trying to at least do stuff, okay? So, like, when I think about his Azir and Nico game, like, he's going in trying to make plays, and literally all other members of his team are dead in the water, watching him die and do nothing. Uh, Most egregiously is Closer and Buzio. Buzio is a rookie as well, so he hasn't. This is the second or third mid laner he's ever played with in his life. I cut him some slack, right? But like some days not doing anything. Closer's watching his mid laner die, and Buzio is like there to sometimes help Quid and not pressing enemies buttons. The amount of times that I felt like Buzio could have just pressed Rakan R to try and save Quid, I think it would have worked out. Because honestly, he did not press Rakan R very much at all in his games, right? I'm like, what are you saving Rakan R for? You haven't pressed it in 10 minutes, bro. So I think like Quid, as bad as he looks, yeah, you like when if you Nico ult and there's nobody around you, that's pretty freaking bad. But like he's TPing, flanking, he's trying to make engages, he's trying to get in there. Like at least this kid is trying to do something. If I'm being honest, like Doublelift's probably the best player on this team, and like Quid, I don't know, I would rather have Quid than the other 3 members right now because he's trying to do something. I can work with that. I feel like if like I'm a coach or or like a team org owner or something, I could work with Quid. He's trying to make plays. The other guys, like, what the hell are you guys doing? You guys are actually AFK, not pressing your buttons. So this team is trash. I mean, I think they're either the second worst team or the worst team in the league. I honestly think if they played FlyQuest again, FlyQuest would beat them. Because at least FlyQuest is trying stuff and they're just throwing, right? 100 Thieves isn't even getting to that position. They don't have anything to throw. So
Yeah.
this team's bad. Yeah.
I think the with FlyQuest, people are there still seems to be a lot of upside, right? Potential because they have a good, at least from what we've seen in the past, like they have a good on paper roster. So the upside there is still pretty good. For 100 Thieves though, I don't know if there is an upside right now because and for all the reasons you're right, we should give a little bit of pass to Quid and all that stuff. And I was gonna make a joke in there. Maybe they're just still used to Bjergsen, the sit back and do nothing type play, right? And so maybe they're not used to a mid laner trying to do something proactive. I mean, honestly, like if you're Doublelift too, like I will say, yeah, Kevin mentioned, wake up, it's summer. But honestly, if your team's just not doing anything, like it doesn't seem like you really can't make a play as an ADC. You need to kind of have a team that's providing some of those opportunities for then you to come in and really clean up shop and go in there and wreck everybody. So to me, this team, it's really hard to watch their games too because it really just looks like they bend over for the other team. I mean, that's other than what you said. Exactly. And that's what we were saying with the Bjergsen thing, right? Like that's just the style that it seemed like to that's why I wanted to see what would happen with Quid. And Mitchell, I like that you pointed the fact that at least it looks like he's trying to do something. That is a change that they desperately need. They need some proactivity because, like I said, Doublelift can't be proactive in a sense to, he can only do but so much as an ADC. But yeah, that's where I kind of look at them and like, man, they need to do something. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like the game plan that like Cloud9 does when they incorporate a rookie, it's the exact opposite for 100 Thieves. Cloud9 tailors their game plan and put all the resources into helping the rookie feel comfortable and make him shine. 100 Thieves does the exact opposite. They leave that guy on a motherfucking island. They ignore him. They let him die. They let him go in alone and AFK. it is so exact opposite of what you want to see when you incorporate a new player. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely no upside there. FlyQuest, we can touch on them a little bit. I think just because it's still interesting for the sake that they had some moments where they probably should have won some games, but they're 0-6 right now. They're the only team that hasn't gotten a win. I think the interesting part about them, like I said, is that it seems like they should have upside. Is it time to panic? 2 weeks again, like they
Yeah.
don't have a lot of time. So yeah, that's why I want to ask you guys. Like, is it time to panic? Do they have a chance?
Is it top 6 or top 8 mixed playoffs?
It's top
It's
8.
top 8.
Then they're
8 in summer.
they should panic and says like, how the hell do you go 0-6 with a roster like that?
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be 8th. Like I think in a best of 5, there's just too much skill on here. They have shown they can be a pretty okay team. The panic button will really come down to, is Vikla truly bad? Like, did he get to rank 1 because he got boosted? Like, did someone else play on his account, or did he actually get rank 1 in NA and like by a huge margin? Right? It, it can't, they can't be this bad is what I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
The real panic button is, will they make top 4 even if they do make it into playoffs? And right now it just looks like the trajectory is not there objectively, right? Vulcan should not be a detriment to this team, but they just, for some reason, maybe they had internal strife, maybe because they fell so short of the goals, the pressure is even higher from the internal. So honestly, we can't know, and I just think that this is hilarious how bad they are.
Yeah.
I think it's past time to panic. 0-6. I mean, they were the third best team. They almost made it to MSI, and now they can't even win a game. That's bad. I mean, even if, because like, if you're not, you don't want to be the team who goes off, like plays really well. You're the underdog. Everyone's hyped for you. You get everyone's expectations up, and then you're the new Dignitas, right? Like, it's a bad look. They already have, like, they have a. I'm pretty sure that org makes a lot of money off of their merch, and there's going to be a lot less merch sold if this is how they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, a lot of teams make money off merch, but that's FlyQuest thing. They push it so much more than any other org. Um,
Yeah.
they're just kind of collapsing, and
Yeah.
I mean, even barely scraping into playoffs is not something they'll be happy with.
All right. And real quickly before Mitchell goes, just wanted to say that Kevin has to head out because he's got that thing called a job. I'm just happy he was here to talk about Team Liquid a little bit. So, Kevin, thanks for joining, man. Have a good day at work, and we'll catch you later. So,
We
peace
don't
out,
do
Kevin.
that here. We
Yeah.
don't work.
We don't work. Yeah. All right, man. Take
Yep.
care. All right, Mitchell. So, your go. What do you think about this team? What are your thoughts? Doomer or
FlyQuest.
hope? Is there hope or is it doomed?
I think it's okay. The only way it's not doomed is if they have an insane win rate for the entire rest of the split. I think if they go like okay, if they go 0-3 again, I think it's actually doomed. Like I think it's like game over. If they go 1-2, maybe a little bit of hope. Still pretty close to doomed. 2-1, maybe I can work with that. 3-0 obviously can work with that, right? But this is the first half of the round robin, 0-6. There's not a lot of time left. It's very condensed schedule and split. You
Yeah.
have to get your shit together now ASAP. That's why I'm very worried about 100 Thieves as well, right? They have a brand new player. He's a complete rookie, barely speaks English, I bet. They only have a couple of weeks to make it work, right? Same with FlyQuest, right? They're 0-6. Their mental is probably not in a great spot, and they clearly have a lot of shot calling issues to work out. I think that's their main problem is that they are so split in calls that it's like actually like losing them games like so far. Like their laning is honestly fine, and they're able to throw these games because their shot calling is that bad. Like the amount of teams in the history that have skated by with their good laning and good players and terrible shot calling. It's there's a lot of teams in history. This team can't even do that though. In NA LCS, like that means their shot calling and macro is that bad. It's bringing all of their great laning all the way down the drain. Um, yeah, I mean, my main problem with this team is Spica. I think that he was the linchpin for this team that really made everything work for them last split, and I think that he had a really, really bad first week, like kind of solo losing his team the early game kind of plays last week, and this week was maybe not the same way, but like he has no impact. He doesn't do anything as their like star jungler. Um, and I don't know if that's like the calls being made. I don't know if like Vulcan is drowning out Spica and what Spica wants to do because I know that both are very vocal players. But yeah, like I don't think Vulcan is necessarily the problem, but there is a lot of problems, and I mean, I'm just gonna quote Vulcan himself: "Bring back Winsome." Like, I'm not even joking.
Oh.
Like I know it would be really devastating for Vulcan. His ego probably couldn't take it, but like Winsome was probably pretty quiet, is my guess. Winsome was probably just down to do what the team was telling him to do, and that's what this team needs. You have Impact and Spica, who are very loud, and you throw in Vulcan in there too. I just don't think it's worth it. I think you got to give Spica back his voice, or yeah, I think this team's not going to make it very far. Like, yeah, maybe you can make top 8, right, if you win a couple
Hmm.
more games here and there, but they're not going far in playoffs with this roster. I don't think, unless something magical happens and they all go to a jacuzzi and they bro out and they say, "Hey, man, let's, Vulcan, here are the keys," right? But like,
Yeah.
I don't think this team's gonna be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean when I look at their drafts over the past 6 games, I feel like it's a lack of like direction. Like they seem like they're trying to do so many different things. Like Vulcan has played 6 different supports in 6 different games. You've got a mix of enchanters and a mix of engages, right? With Spica, same kind of thing. You have a mix of like supportive style junglers like Ivern and Maokai, and then you have like carry type junglers with Rek'Sai, Viego, Vi, right? Like it just doesn't seem like there's a overall direction, and that might be coming from within the team. Like, well, who's the shot caller? Who's the is the coach really directing stuff? Because this to me doesn't seem like they have a clear direction of who they want to play towards, what they want to do. Because honestly, yeah, everybody can be good, but you have to prioritize like who's going to be kind of the win conditions or what's your game plan for a win condition. And honestly, like to me, it should still be Prince, right? But with Vulcan and seeing like this wide array of champions and them not really knowing what to do, along with the fact that who knows if he's trying to shot call and it's kind of cluttering up the comms. Like, yeah, it really just seems like there's no direction and it's pretty evident in their gameplay. And I don't know if that can be fixed in such a short time. Maybe if we had the regular schedule, that would give them some more weeks, some more days in between the games to like
Yeah.
work out some of these kinks. But like you said, it's condensed schedule. If this next week will definitely be telling. I'm hoping, I'm rooting for them because what I don't want is for them to just say, hey, we failed the split, let's blow it up, right? Because I think this roster should, and I think it still can be good if they have a little more time to go. But you might be right. If it's too cluttered in comms and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, they might just call it, especially with what's his name, Pop Smithy in the head of the helm there, kind of just saying like, hey, it's not gonna work.
You know what this roster reminds me of? It reminds me actually, I mean, it's so much worse, but it reminds me of Team Liquid last year, where they had like the
Right.
super Omega Beast roster and they didn't make
Hmm.
it to Worlds. Like, I feel like this is like the ultimate doomer scenario of that roster, where they have this, they barely didn't make it to MSI, super mental boom, right? Like same with Team Liquid last year in spring, they barely didn't make it to MSI because of Danny like making a crazy 1v9 Baron steal,
Yeah.
and they just mental boom for the rest of the year, and they could not keep it together. They just looked so messy.
Hmm.
The one caveat is, yeah, they have Papa Smithy, who has a huge track record of being very successful, and even more crazy is they have Song, the guy who
Hmm.
literally brought DRX a world championship as their coach. And Song has, been coaching a lot of teams, both in NA and Korea. Um, so I think I'm actually quite surprised that Song hasn't been able to like bring this team together like right now. Considering they only swapped one player from last split to this split, so there's got to be some weird stuff going on. I imagine this is just a total random take. I have no evidence behind it, but like, are we gonna see some weird behind the scenes drama? Like, if this team blows up and like doesn't make it to Worlds or anything like that, like in December or something, we start seeing articles like Vulcan straight up went up to Prince and punched him in the face. It was crazy in week 2. Like, I don't know. We're gonna see some weird drama in the behind the
Yeah.
scenes, or like maybe FlyQuest is like having some internal struggles, because this seems like it is. There's a lot of hidden stuff that's making this team
Yeah,
go bad.
it's too good, like you said, for it to be this bad. But
Yeah.
let's go. Let's move on. We got 2 other teams left. I don't know. There may not be much to say there. You might have a lot, but it's Immortals and NRG. Let's start with NRG because to me, Immortals is just like it's kind of going as scripted, right? Like I don't know if there's too much to say there, but NRG, like again, this is a team that's kind of hard to read. They've been more on the negative side of things. Have pulled out a win against like Cloud9. And who else did they beat? Did they beat Team Liquid? I can't remember if it was they, but they've had notable.
Energy beat Team Liquid, yeah.
Yeah, Energy. So that's what's interesting, right? Like they have these wins, but then they're also losing games that you're like, well, if you beat those teams, how come you can't beat these? So I'm a little puzzled. That's why I think they're still interesting because they do this and they've been known to do this. So thoughts on NRG being 2-4?
Honestly, I kind of expected a bit more, to be honest. I mean, I ranked them fourth. Then again, I am biased towards that CLG roster.
Yeah.
But them beating TL was a good sign for me. But
Yeah, so I misspoke. They beat Cloud9 and 100 Thieves. So
Yeah.
their only good
Oh,
win,
right.
their only good win was against Cloud9
Their only
at the
real win.
time.
Yeah.
And the time they did
Cloud9.
beat 100 Thieves, we thought they would have been good. So no, okay. So it is more along the gloomer side, where the doomer side. They've only gotten one win, and like I said, that may just be because of stylistically they have the inside track on beating Cloud9. But go ahead, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just think it was still a good win, though they certainly could have lost that game at multiple different times. But overall, like, I think they're not going to be a pushover team at any point. I think they're still going to be able to contest. I mean, that's kind of what CLG's been kind of known for last year or two. But I'm happy with it. I don't. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have.
Okay.
Yeah, Energy. I mean, I don't know. They still got some ramping up to do, I guess. Like, they should have beat TSM or something like that, right? They should have beat these other teams,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't. So yeah, they're very inconsistent, and then they beat C9. I don't know. This is a team that's very very hard to tell. I think they're just figuring their stuff out. I mean, they had that insane throw last week against Immortals too. So my guess is they're a team that is probably better than what they've been able to show. I think they're probably like a team that is probably better in scrims too than what their stage performance is. I imagine if like they were to redo all of their games exactly like that they played in the last 6 games, they would have a much higher score. But I don't know. They just have like I wouldn't say like chokers necessarily, but they have just like weird moments. Like even against Cloud9, right? I felt like FBI, he was like 6 kill Kaisa, and there was this moment at the end of the game where like it looked like Energy was gonna clean close it out, and then a bunch of Energy members actually died in like a weird ass skirmish. And
Mm.
yeah, okay, Contracts and I think Palafox were still around to end the game, but like I was like, how did FBI die there? Like, what is he doing? Like he just and I like go back and watched it, and he's just standing there right clicking, and he gets shuriken in the face by a cannon. I'm like, where's like the dodge? Where's the movement?
Yeah.
So this team feels like some mix of very aggressive, very proactive, and very in there, and then like lazy also. Like
Yeah.
they just don't check all the boxes to be like, yo, don't like just die for free like at the end. Like that's the FBI, man. Like he does all this great stuff, all this really difficult get myself fed, have a good laning phase, join the fight at the right time, and then at the end of the game he's just super lazy and he dies for free. And I'm like, that is not what you want, right? From your star ADC. Like FBI is supposed to be one of our best ADCs in the league. He hasn't shown that in a long time. So I don't really know what to say about this roster except that
Yeah.
they're just very inconsistent. Not even in terms of spans over games, but inconsistent from like minute to minute within a game. So
Consistently inconsistent has been the
yeah.
the name of the game and the theme for this team.
Definitely.
So it's definitely always kind of hard to pinpoint them. Do you guys have any thoughts on Immortals, our last team?
And they
Not
suck.
particularly.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
Kennedy's new ex Smithy with
Okay.
with those Sejuani ults, but
Yo,
Yeah.
he's so bad. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
man.
not looking good for them.
I think it's doomed for Kenby. Like I can't say that he's a good player at this point. Like it's been like 2 years now, and
Right.
like in like just solo scenarios, like where he's just all you have to do is do a certain mechanical thing. There's no pressure outside. There's no like team calls, anything that should be hampering you. Like just land your
Yeah.
ulti, right? It's Yeah, I don't think he's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I kind of have to agree. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been the Kenvi supporter. It's getting hard, man. It's getting really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of
Okay.
these alts are just so free as well.
Yeah, yeah. So also his choices that he makes to like, God, there was a game where like he just refused to farm or something. Like I think it was against 100 Thieves actually when they won. Oh no, it was against River. Yeah, it was against the Golden Guardians game. Like Kenby was just literally refusing to farm. Like he was just like walking around like pathing to maybe like go for a counter gank. But it's like a level 5 Wukong. I'm like, bro, farm your camps, man. Like, oh my god, it was so painful. Like, I feel like there's a mix of him having really bad mechanics, but also like he's just getting pulled around the map. Like he doesn't have any agency. It seems like in his team. Like his team's just calling him to do stuff, and he's just like, yeah, I guess I'll just do it and just screw myself over, and then just whiff everything later. Like, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
treats is maybe like a small bright spot for this team where I feel like sometimes he's got good engages, but um I imagine like whatever calls treats are making are like confusing the heck out of his team too. So it's probably not all sunshine and rainbows. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
All right. Well, that wraps up the teams. Let's dive a little bit into the meta. I know there's going to be big changes with Static Shiv coming out. I'm not sure. Is that coming out? Will that be the next patch for
No,
next
it's not
week?
out yet.
Not yet. So we still may be
Seems
seeing
also.
some more of the same. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, just the champs that we saw? I mean, we finally got to see Vi played. LeBlanc has been banned almost every single time. It's got that is probably the biggest abuser of Static Shiv. It did go through once and won that game. Nico's still pretty high priority, so is Aphelios. We did start to see a Azir again, a lot of Kindred. So what are your thoughts overall on meta stuff? Do you have anything in particular that you wanted to highlight or point out?
Honestly, nothing really new aside from what we had talked about last week. To be honest, I feel like it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really talk about the static shift stuff last week. I kind of
Fair.
just like mentally checked out of that. Yeah, static shift's broken item. It's getting nerfed. That's obvious. Everyone's talking about it. We don't have to go
Yeah.
too far. I'm gonna say, I think LeBlanc static shiv is immensely overrated, like crazy overrated. Like the fact that it's being banned and sometimes first picked, I think is just it's actually game losing. I think how bad it can be sometimes
Really?
because I've
All right.
seen it in
Why?
other regions get first picked and the enemy team just drafts like just the perfect thing against it and it is so garbage. It's like super useless. Because the problem with static shiv LeBlanc is when you're building static shiv, you're like okay, so the concept behind Static Shiv LeBlanc is like you get this wave clear and you get this a lot of side prio and you get to
Hmm.
move a lot, right? Um, but you're like so you're shoring up one of LeBlanc's weaknesses. But what you're also doing is you're not like investing into LeBlanc's strength. And when you're building static shiv items like longswords and daggers, like you're so weak before you actually get your static shiv,
Hmm.
like you can't kill your enemy mid laner, which is what LeBlanc is super good at doing if you just build AP. So I think like it's a big weakness for her where like you pick LeBlanc into Ari or something, and like Ari just gets a free laning phase when she should be like getting her like fucking like punched in the face over and over again by LeBlanc. So
Hmm.
it's you're missing that strength from LeBlanc. Also, you're missing the fact that like um, when you build Shiv, you don't ever have the choice to freeze or hold the lane. You have no lane control. All you can
Mm.
do is shove it.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about LeBlanc is you hold the wave, the enemy mid laner walks up, you just jump on them and chain them, and then your whole team can kill them, right? LeBlanc has one of the greatest mid lane gank setups. You can't do that when you have Shiv because you don't have damage and you auto shove the wave. And then you get to this mid game phase, right? Where yeah, you have all this like AP on hit stuff, Shiv, Ludens, Night Harvester, Lichblade, whatever. You do negative damage to a tank. Like you do actually no damage. You scale nothing. So you skipped the part where you're strong in the laning phase. You skipped the part where you can control the wave, and now you scale into damage where you can only hurt the squishy. And it's like if they build any MR, right? You have the shiv that's just giving you attack damage and crit. Like you don't have a void staff as your third item core, right? So I think it's very overrated. I think it's quite bad in pro play if you first pick it. I think if you later pick it, there's a lot of choice there because Shiv is obviously really strong. But first picking LeBlanc, I saw it get punished so many times in LCK, LPL, and LEC.
What specifically was it? Like champion counters, or what did they do then to counter that?
So counter for game plan, right? I mean, you just pick a scaling mid and you outscale her so hard in team fights. Like a
Mm.
Shiv LeBlanc entering into mid game fights, right? If she's not way ahead of the curve, she does no damage. She's very, very weak. If she
Yeah.
gets ahead of the curve, that's a different story, right? But we already
Right.
talked about how it's harder to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Also, tanks, right? Kasante, Sion, Malphite, Sejuani, Maokai, all these guys ignore Sejuani or ignore LeBlanc,
Yeah.
like even more so than a full AP LeBlanc. ADCs, right? You build one MR item anywhere at all. LeBlanc can't do anything, right? I think the full AP burst stuff, like Luden's Deathcap, Void Staff, yeah, you can kind of still make it over the hump and one shot ADC if they have an
Mm-hmm.
X Drinker. But this Shiv stuff, you cannot do it. So I think if you're first picking it and the enemy team, like, yeah, just pick Ari. Like, it's supposed to be a bad matchup for you, but like, you just scale so hard in team fights. You pick Kasante top or Sejuani jungle. You pick a Rel, like, support. These support champions can just ignore the LeBlanc completely. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take on
I
it.
think you make a pretty compelling case for it. I think what it definitely is. It's you're absolutely right in that it kind of you downplay some of your strengths to shore up some of the weaknesses, and I do see it give a little more consistent and long term damage because you're kind of in the fight with fleet footwork. You're kind of moving in and out, and you're healing a little bit. So
Poke is
you
good, yeah.
so you have to play. It is a different style of play style. If you're used to playing the one shot burst, LeBlanc, it's a little bit different. You kind of have to adjust accordingly. I think you could make counter arguments to that. I won't
Yeah.
go to it, but I think you're right in the fact that there is ways to beat it. Obviously, you've seen examples, and there are ways to do it. So we'll have to see. And what I do think is interesting is just seeing all the different champs that are building static shiv and kind of going in there. I do think that it's one, it makes it interesting because sometimes I think champs are picked just so they can build the static shiv and then to just see it. So that makes it fun. The item is definitely broken, and so it does need to be nerfed. But I do think for that purpose, it's kind of cool. So there's some champs I want to mention, and maybe it'll spark some thoughts for you guys. But champs that did actually get picked a lot, meaning they went through, and that had high win rates. Okay, so definitely Rel was one. Picked 8 times, was 7-1.
That's hell
Yeah,
champion.
Xayah, Rakan both got through 7 times and won 57%. And then, of course, no surprise, Kasante got through 6 times, 5-1, 83%. And then some other outliers, but kind of lower presences. Jace, Ari were 2 that were kind of there. And again, those make sense. Like we've seen that a lot, right? And again, Nico is still not getting through often, but the times that she does get through, she's winning pretty good. So, any other thoughts? I just wanted to highlight that. Maybe it sparks something. Maybe you think or surprised by any champs that aren't on there. But any other thoughts on meta, given what I've just said? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have a question to pose to Alistair. I think in every other region, Xayah goes Quickblades, but we saw a lot of Galeforce Xayah. What are your thoughts on the Xayah build?
I think Quickblades is best.
Yeah.
Permanent W uptime's way too good, and the amount of times you can pull feathers back, get feathers out, is really insane. Galeforce is more of a situational thing. I would say you want to prioritize Quickblades, but you go Galeforce if you have to. But then on top of that, if you're playing Xayah, most of the time in competitive, you have a Rakan who's already going to peel for you. Plus, you have your ult, probably Flash and Ghost. So Quickblades isn't as necessary as it is on other champions.
Galeforce, you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm also a Quickblades fan. I think you missed the dash, but your DPS is so much higher with Quickblades. It's just you can't give it up. Like it's too good. And I think she's just actually she's kind of S tier with Quickblades. I think and her damage is kind of poo poo with Gale Force. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I also I find the evolution of builds interesting, right? Because we have the static shiv, like certain champs are rushing it, like Kaisa and like Varus or whatever. But I mean the choices that players make to go like Kraken into Galeforce into like some other stuff or like I don't know. I find the ADC builds have been more interesting lately, just because I think nobody knows what the best stuff is all the time quite yet. So it hasn't been figured out yet. But
Well,
funnily
I
enough,
can tell you, Storm Razor sucks.
oh yeah, Storm
Storm
Razor.
Razor's trash.
Yeah, unlucky. Yeah, it was good for one batch. Yeah. The funny, sad thing is that I don't think I've seen a single Infinity Edge in all of competitive play. I watch 4 regions, guys. I don't have a life. I've seen zero
Yeah.
Infinity Edges. Isn't that insane? One of
Yeah.
the most iconic League of Legends items ever doesn't get picked. Yeah,
True.
pretty sad.
It's
Um,
trash. It's just so bad.
it's unlucky, man. Unlucky. Yeah, I guess last meta note I want to take is I think Ivern is cool. I think he's actually
Mm,
really,
okay.
really, really strong, but nobody knows how to play him or utilize him properly. I almost think, all right, so LS haters are gonna hate me because
Mm,
honestly, I'm kind of an LS hater sometimes. I honestly think like stuff like Ivern mid and Ivern support is better than Ivern jungle. I think his like trading patterns and like are so strong right now, just because the champ's overtuned.
mhm.
I like his shield. Oh my god, man, it's so strong. I just don't feel like you get a lot of uptime pressing a bunch of shields in Ivern jungle, right? You don't get to abuse his most broken thing. But like Ivern shields, if you don't break the shield, you get another shield. Oh my god, it's so good in like short trades and skirmishes. Like you just can't take damage. So I'm personally a fan of Ivern support and Ivern mid and stuff. I actually think it's
I can agree with Ivern mid, less so with Ivern support. I think Ivern support's not that great.
all right, fair enough. Yeah,
The
I
one thing
mean,
I do want to touch on,
yeah.
Palafox played it. Don't play it. It's not good. Kaisa
Mm.
mid.
Uh,
Don't play it. It's not
yeah,
good. Stop
yeah.
trying to make it work. It's never going to be good. Just
But
stop.
shiv, but shiv, bro.
But
Just
Shiv.
just stop.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think it was being played a lot into LeBlanc mid in LPL, I think, as an answer.
Yeah,
And it
man, I
was
really
just
want to play an 80 carry against an assassin voluntarily. It's a lot of
yeah,
fun, actually.
it didn't look good.
It's
Yeah,
so
it was
bad.
rough.
Just like, please, if you want to win games and you care about your LP, don't play Kaisa mid. Play
Yeah,
normals all you want. Fair game. That's for fun. Trying to win? Don't play Kaisa mid.
yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts on so one last thing I wanted to throw in there too is Annie has been a pick that's been in the mid lane for a while. Still kind of pretty high presence, but it is not winning any games. Do you think this is a pick that teams should still be pulling out? Because it just doesn't seem to be succeeding for whatever reason. I don't know, but just stats wise, it doesn't seem to be, it seems to still be kind of a priority, but it's not doing well.
I think it's scrim bait,
Hmm.
Okay.
to be honest. I think Annie is a worse version of Ari and Nico. Where it's like you play it because you're not the damage is good, but it's not necessarily like super high where you can always just one shot people like you can with like a Syndra, for example. But it's there because you're gonna set up your jungler gets to carry. You still have your own damage, you still hold your own, but you're not 100% burst mage. You're kind of like Orianna, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like, okay, well, super high prio like gank setup are getting banned because you got Ari, LeBlanc, Nico, like 3 best gank setup in the meta. Okay, we're gonna go for fourth, and then we're Annie, but then you know
Yeah.
the enemy team can just like because it's not as good and it's not as oppressive, I would say.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Annie is also just not being utilized very well too. I think
True.
in other regions, like I mean, just look at Knight, right? Knight will take Annie if it's up like almost all the time, and he'll smurf on it. So I think it's a bit of a team difference thing too, but definitely like she's not like a free win, and she's not like first pick material. I think
Hmm.
teams are early prying her, and that's what they're used to. But I think she's got so many solid counters you can pick in lane to get a lot of prio on her. Like, I mean, just Azir, right? Azir being buffed again and being strong in the
Yeah.
meta. I just like, why pick Annie when you can pick Azir? Because you'll win lane and then you'll out DPS Annie and you can still shuffle people. So yeah, I mean, there's like Nico and Ari stuff obviously too, like other similar utility type mid laners. Um, yeah, I mean, I just think she's just okay. I honestly think like any support is maybe better, and you go like Emax and stuff because yeah, her damage is still a little meh.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, Annie's all right. I mean, I'm a big Azir fan right now. I mean, I'm not a fan. I say I just think you should pick him. I'm kind of annoyed he's actually already back in the meta after only being gone for like a few months. But I think he's super strong right now for Azir.
Yeah.
And you should drop your prio for Annie and just pick up the Azir. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess kind of go along with that. Like Annie doesn't really have any escapes or mobility like LeBlanc or Ari. Even Nico kind of has some deception and ways to get out of there. And Azir, like you said, Azir has ways out. So Annie is like, you've got to go in and you've got to make it count. You got to like make sure that the damage is there. But
also the builds are weird too. Like,
yeah, the
people go
build, yeah.
Proto Belt and stuff. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, I get it for the engage and slight more mobility, but like, I almost wonder if you just play like a mage instead of playing like a one-shot engage. Like, what if you just played like a mage and like, there's so much big beefy front lines. Like, Tibbers is so broken. Like, that's one of the main things about it. What if you just like built Leandries and like played kind of like backline stuff, but
Mhm.
everybody only tunnels on the hard engage
The
idea.
burst, yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the episode? Anything on any part of LCS or just League in general? Anything you got?
I am really down for FlyQuest to go 18. I'm actually kind of down for it. I think it would be kind of funny. I think it would be a big meme. Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty stoked for it. I think it would be cool. I mean, it's weird to say it would be cool for one of supposedly our best teams to go
Yeah.
18 in our own league.
Yeah.
But this team is so bad. I'm kind of down for it. Like I want them to like be so close to winning games and just throw it magically for some reason. Like I don't know. I would love it if like 100 Thieves was also like the 9th place team and the only like wins were against FlyQuest too. Like I don't know. I just think it would be funny. It would really suck for my standings and it would really suck for Double Lift, who I'm a fan of. But like, what if these were just our two? Because they look like our two worst teams. Like
They
Immortals,
do.
even though they lost 100 Thieves, they look more consistent at least over
Yeah.
other games.
Yep.
But like, man, FlyQuest and 100 Thieves are so bad. They're like actually our two worst teams. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm here for the was it Zvan and Jan beef?
Oh
We're gonna see. I want to see if that's continuing this week.
Yeah, go back to the academy. No handshake.
That will be great to see.
That's crazy.
Definitely some good matchups coming up, so I'm excited about that. But that's going to wrap up this episode. I want to thank my co-host, Kevin, who is gone now. We're doing his job, but also Alistair and Mitchell for powering through. And there's a lot of teams, a lot of action, a lot of things to go over, but it's always good stuff, so appreciate you guys. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.